Good morning and welcome to Elio Moon Arts. My name's Fiona Elliott. I am Elio Moon Arts and today we're going to have a go at working with some resin. So I've got this pack of Couture Creations clear casting resin. It's a 1:1 mix ratio, so it's more like an art resin than a casting resin, but you can do both with this. So in the pack, this is their pack. It comes with clear casting resin part A, clear casting resin part B, 3 measuring containers and 2 mixing implements. Now I'll show you all of those. I'll just move this box out of the way. So this is part A. This is part B. So we've got both of those. We've got these two little match. Oh, I don't know whether you can see them because they're clear. These two little spatula-y things to mix our resin with. And where did I put those? And we've got 3 little measuring cups. Now, the reason they give you 3 measuring cups is so that you mix part A, put part B in, and then you tip both lots into this container. I don't necessarily do that. I know that's what they recommend you to do, but what I do is I put my hardener in first, which I'm going to say in this case is part B. I haven't used this resin yet, so I'm not 100% sure, but just going by the other resins that I have here at home, I'm going to say part B is the hardener and this one is the resin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark on my little cups here. They've got little measures down the side. And once you start putting resin in them, they get a little bit hard to see. So we want a 1-to-1 ratio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this marker and I'm going to mark on all of the containers how much I want. So I'm going to say 15 mils of hardener, 15 mils of resin, which is just there. I just take that line all the way around, just so that I can see it when I... It's got lines on it actually. These cups are not too bad. I've had other ones which are not quite as good. So if we make this up, the same on this one. All the way around on that area. So I do have a couple of things that we're going to create today. So today we'll be doing the pouring, and I'll have to do another part of the video to do the actual what do they call it? So when we finish that, when we have our finished product. So today we're going to do a, hold on a moment, I'm just going to grab a couple of things that we don't need. Not very well organised this morning. I'm trying very hard to be, but just didn't have it. So I've got these tiny little flowers that I would like to put into some resin. I've got a few different colours. So I'm just going to pop them up there. I've got some tweezers which we'll use to actually place them in. I've got scissors. Don't think I'll need those. I've got these stirring sticks as well if I need them. And I've also got a spatula-y thing. A pigment. I've got a blowtorch if I want to use that. Now, it's personal preference, I believe. So I have a blowtorch. I have used it, but I don't necessarily use it very often. I also have, which I think a lot of people do have, is a heat gun. So this is a Couture Creations heat gun. And you could use that also. And this is mainly to get rid of the bubbles that could occur in our resin as we're pouring it and stuff. But the other thing that I like to use is actually isopropyl alcohol, IPA. So this is a Couture Creations spray bottle. I've just filled it with Couture Creations isopropyl alcohol, and I will be using this. A couple of things to remember when using resin is to be in a well-ventilated area. For starters, I have a window open over there at the moment in my art room. You also want to consider PPE that might be appropriate for you to use. When doing this, I would also... what was I going to say? I don't even know now. It's gone right out of my head. So you need to be very careful when using this stuff. So if you want to use gloves, by all means go ahead. I will be using a pair of gloves, which I better get out right now, otherwise I'll forget them. But as long as you're really careful and you're not putting your hands in it, you should be fairly okay. So we're going to be actually creating a couple of things today. So the first one we're going to do is a book plate. So for the front and back of a book, I've only got one. I'm just going to move these out of the way and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I only currently have one of these book plates, which is this here. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have to make one, and then once that's set, I'll have to make a second one. So I've got a front and a back page. So this is going to become a journal of some sort eventually. I also would recommend that you get a little bit of your isopropyl alcohol and just spray it in whatever piece you're going to be using, and just give it a really good wipe and make sure there's no dusts or bits of particles in there, because we're going to be using a clear resin in this project. We're going to need to make sure we don't have anything in there at all. I mean, I've got a bit of hair in there, I can see. Let's see, one bit of hair. I've actually tied my hair back from my face this morning for this. I might just wipe the back side of it because it might be on the back side as well. I think it's from my dog, this hair. So I'm just going to wipe this over. Just going to give this another quick spray because I'm not really happy with how clean it is yet. So I want this piece to be really clean. This is our main piece that we're going to work on today. I do have a couple of other moulds which I'd like to show you. So I've also got these jewellery moulds, which is something we can work with as well. And I also have this mould, which is alphabet and numbers. So that might be something else I might do a little bit later on as well. So, but for today, for the moment, we're just going to work on this book cover, because this will all tie in when I'm actually going to make a full journal, and I'm going to go through all the process from making the cover right through to our completed product. So I'm going to make a few videos which will do that. So to start off with, we will need our resin. Probably a couple of things I should mention. Okay, so this is just a piece of cardboard. Now I use a bit of cardboard so that everything stays, so I can actually move this piece to where I need it to be. I've made sure that my table's level, all of those types of things. And so I'm just going to put that on there. And I've actually taped some baking paper over the top of this. And previously when I've done that, if you have any spills on it, you can just sort of pick them off once they're dry and get rid of them. So that's the reason for that. I don't have to worry about holes because these little pieces of silicone that are sitting up will actually create the holes that I need to actually put through to make my book. And then I've just got to decide on what colour flowers I'm going to put in, because I'm actually going to use these little tiny little ones, because this is a very shallow mould that I've got. I am going to buy a couple of other ones because I want a couple of different sizes. So to start off with, I'm going to get part B, which is my hardener. Read your directions first, Fiona, which would be a good thing. So this is 1:1. So it's just telling you to make sure that your working area is appropriate for measuring and mixing. We recommend covering area to protect against accident spills. Pouring casting resin can permanently stain, and once cured, resin is extremely durable, chemical resistant, and nearly impossible to remove. Make sure to use and store materials away from children. So that's pretty much it. So I've got a craft mat also underneath me to make this a little bit easier for today. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour my first bit. Oh, I didn't realise they had these on it. I have to take my gloves off to get them off. Might grab my little metal one. So they've got these little so I'm just going to cut around this, sorry, off camera. I'm just going to take this piece out, and this is for the hardener, just like that. And you're going to have to excuse me for a minute. I am going to need to go and grab some paper towel. I don't seem to have any up here at the moment, and I will need some. Hold on 2 secs. Okay, now I have some paper towel. I just want the paper towel to put my implements on and to wipe up as I go. So I'm just going to put that here. So I'm going to measure out my 15 mils of hardener. So I've just got to take it to that line. And yep, that's it. So that's our hardener done. And my next one is the resin itself. And I'll have to open this one as well. There's my little doodaddy thing. Okay, now we'll mix our resin, pour our resin out, and we're just going to make sure that everything goes up to that line. It is important to make sure that you measure your casting resin to what they say. Like, I mean, this is 1 to 1. So I'm wanting to make sure that this is right. I don't, with this in particular resin, I prefer to measure it by having it in a cup like this. I don't like to measure it using the weigh measure, because it's got a little thing on the bottom of it. I find that the resin itself is much heavier than the actual hardener. So I'm actually going to pour the resin into my hardener. So I know that I've got the same amount of each. I'm just going to grab one of my little spatula-y things. Now I've got to mix this for quite a few minutes. So what I might do is, I'm going to show you the method that I use for mixing. And I'll show you a couple of other little things, and then I'm going to turn the camera off, finish mixing this, because I don't think you need to see me mixing resin. Just going to pour that onto there. So you will see that, I don't know whether you can see it, there's little stringy bits that you get when you mix the two parts together. And so we've got to mix them until they are all combined and the resin is clear. So you get a little bit of cloudiness and you get all these stringy bits in our resin. So that's something that we need to look for when we're mixing our resin. It's a little cooler here today, but it's not too bad. So the resin will take a little longer to work. I could put some colour in this. If I'm going to colour something, you cannot put more than, with anything that you put into resin, no more than 10% or 5%, I think it might be. I'll just have to double check that. I think it's actually 5%. So, and what I'm doing is I'm grabbing my stick, pulling it forward and bringing it over. I find that this is the way to get the least amount of bubbles. And then I'll mix around the bottom, around the corners. And because I put the resin into the hardener, you won't have the resin going off in the cup. And it makes it easier for cleanup as well. So I can reuse these cups again by doing it that way. So I can see there's still quite a few bubbles in this. But I'm going to go away and I'm going to keep mixing this resin until it's ready. Something else just before I go. Now I also have these Couture Creations pigment powders. So I might put a little bit of colour in some of these to go with this, or we might do the colour when we do the jewellery or the numbers over there. So we'll just have a wait and see about that. And I'm going to go off camera now. I'm going to finish mixing this and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back again now. Now my resin is fully mixed. Apparently it gives me a 10-minute working time, so I was just reading, which is fine. I've cleaned up my other container that I had the resin in. And now I'm just going to go through, clean this one up. So I use isopropyl alcohol to clean up my resin containers and stuff. So I'm thinking that maybe it might be nice to put a little bit of a colour in. And I'm thinking I'm going to go with the pink. So maybe I might use a little bit of this. So I'm not sure whether these are opaque or whether they're translucent. So we're about to find out together. So I'm just going to use a little bit of this pink. I'll just do a tiny little bit in there. Should be all we need, and we're just about to find out. So I'm just going to mix this through well. So they've got like a pearl type effect on here. So maybe we're just going to still quite translucent, which is great. Okay, so let's go ahead now. We've got that all mixed in. Just going to pop that over there. So I'm going to gently pour some of this into the mould. Probably about half of it. I'll leave that there for a minute. So this is all self-leveling as well. So I just want to push this around a little bit, get it right into those corners. Because I'm wanting to create sort of a base layer so that I can then start to put my flowers in. I need to put a little bit more in than this. So this is the first time I've worked with this in particular resin. I have worked with other resins though before and made a bit of jewellery and stuff. So not totally new to me, but this brand is. It'll be interesting to see how it all turns out. I'm liking the look of it so far. The pigments are beautiful. So basically I need this to be set, to be all over the mould so that I can glue down my flowers into it. Well, I'm not going to use glue, but I'm using the resin as a glue. And then once they're in, because my flowers will be lighter than the resin and they'll float if I don't do this first. So I'm just going to put this bit in. Starting to come over now. Okay, so that's all starting to level out a bit now, so I'll just keep that there like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these little white ones to start off with. I'm just going to grab these pair of, and I'm going to put them the front of the flower face down because that's the bit that we'll see when I'm just going to push it right into the resin. Okay, that's a bit better. Get down in there. And clean up for these is the same, for these tweezers is the same as what I do for everything else, just isopropyl alcohol and then a bit of soap and water after. So this can take a little bit of time. I'm just going to add some of these I'll add a couple of coloured ones in here as well, maybe some of these pinky coloured ones. So we're going to have a yellow one in there as well. So these darker pink ones are a little harder to put into the resin for some reason. I don't know why, they just don't want to flatten out like the other ones do. So this one you'll see it's got a bit of stem that's sticking up. I've got a couple in there that are like that, but that's okay. We can knock that off once it's all sorted. Ooh. Scrap you out of there. That you don't belong in there. Got a bit of cotton there. Okay. I hope you're able to see what I'm doing. I'm just adding little flowers in where I think I want them. Because this is the first one, it's just something that I'm playing around with. I don't know what it's going to turn out like. I've never done it before. Not this in particular one either. So I've only just got this mould the other day. I'll throw a few of these white ones in there. I'm just going to be a little bit more casual with them. I'm just going to pour some resin over the top of them all. Okay, move these out the way. Okay, so now I'm just going to pour some more resin over all of this. And I may need to mix up a little bit more resin to go onto this one. I don't know whether this is going to be enough. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be. It did say 30 mils of resin for this in particular project, but as you can see, it's actually not enough. So I'm just going to mix up a little bit more resin. Right here, so we want hardener. Just going to do another 15 mils of each. So that'll give me another 30 mils to play with. And this time I'm actually going to not put any colour in it. And that should give us a pretty nice effect actually. Okay, so there we go, got 15 mils of that one. Just going to squirt some isopropyl in this. I'll wipe that out a bit. Now I want some part A, 15 mils. Okay, 15 mils of that one. So there will be just a slight amount of, this is the hardener that I've just tipped into the cup, into that same cup that we used before, which had the pink colour in it. So I've got that, and now I'm going to tip the resin part in. Because I've never worked with this mould before, I was never sure about quite how much resin I was going to need for it. So this is just, you're seeing it as I've decided to do it. So which is pretty handy sometimes because you see lots of things that you shouldn't get up to. But I'm just going to put a little bit of isopropyl in these two. I'll wipe them both out. I like to sort of clean up as I go, the most part of it. Then after that's all done, I'll go back in later on and I'll give them a proper clean. Just like to get most of it out to start off with. Okay, let's move that one over here. Okay, so now we're going to mix the resin and the hardener together again. And I've just got to mix this until all of those stringy bits moved out of there. And because the resin is actually heavier than and thicker than the hardener, you want to move your spatula from the bottom to the top, so you're dragging the resin and the hardener through each other, and that's how it all becomes combined. Now on this project I won't be using the blowtorch because I could have little bits of the flower still coming up through the project that I'll have to cut off at a later stage, which I'll use a little bit of sandpaper on, a little emery board. This bit takes a little bit of time to do. I might just turn the camera off and come back when I've finished mixing. I'm sure you don't want to be bored out of your brain watching me mix resin. Okay, see you soon. Okay, my resin's all mixed now. And as I said, I'm not going to colour this batch. I'm going to leave it clear. Just going to move some of these flowers around a little bit. Pop in here. Some of them to come into these clear areas. So we're going to pour some more resin. Make sure it goes all over them. So this mould, from the look of it, takes about 60 mils, or just under 60 mils of resin. I'm just going to push these down into the resin a little bit because they're not sitting right down into it. Got a couple of spots that haven't got resin sitting in them. So I'm going to say, like I said, this is the first time I've used this mould. Even these flowers might be a little big for this mould. So we'll wait and see how it turns out in the very end. But it could be a little bit of a problem. This one might just have to be for decoration. I may not actually be able to use it, and I may have to find another way to add something into my resin. There's a couple of other things I'd like to try, so that could become the case at a later stage. And maybe there's things that I'm not doing exactly right. Like I said, I haven't done a lot of resin work, but I've done a little bit. But I've never put anything like this into resin before, so it's all a bit of a learning curve for me as well. I'm just going to turn these ones over, I'll pop them down into here. That one needs to be right down in the resin. You sort of don't want to have little pockets of air either, so you want to make sure that your flowers are sort of well coated in the resin. That's it. This one over. That's right. So I'm just moving some of these pieces around. Sorry if my head's in the way. Sort of kind of have to get over it to see what's happening. piece up there. Yep, that's it. Okay. Could be flipped over there. Okay, I think we're pretty all right at this stage. So I'm going to leave this at that for this in particular piece. Just wiping off my things. I might grab a couple of, I might just add a little bit of pigment to what I've got here. Just because I just want to fill up one of these molds. I've probably only got enough to do one of these smaller molds, so I might do maybe a pretty green. So, and I really don't need a lot of this. It's just the tiniest little bit. It's a very tealy kind of green, so I just want a really tiny little bit to go in there. Pop the lid back on that. And I'm just going to mix that into this bit of resin that I've got here. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful blue. Okay, so I'm just going to tip this bit of blue into this little mould. Probably only got just enough to do this one. Which is great. Beautiful. Okay, so they're all done. So now I'm just going to move these aside so they're not in our way. I'm just going to move this over on my other desk. So we'll come back and have a look at these and finish them off tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm going to clean up this desk and I'm going to start on my second project. Actually, before that, I'm going to grab that back for a minute. I do need to check it for bubbles, which I haven't done yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the isopropyl alcohol and I'm just going to give it a spritz over the top of both pieces, and any bubbles that come up and come in contact with that should just pop as they come along. And I'll keep an eye on that as it starts to dry. It probably needs to sit for about another 5 or 10 minutes and then I'll check it again to make sure that it's drying okay. And yeah, that's about it for this lot. I will talk to you in the next round.